In this video, I'm going to show you how to use the mattress stitch to seam stockinette stitch pieces together. This will create a vertical seam on sweaters, for example. Your side seams is a perfect place to use this. So I'm working on my flow right now, and I've got the pieces done. I just have to seam them up. So we're going to take a look at one of the pieces here closely. When you do mattress stitch, you want to work between the first and second column of stitches. So your stitches form V's, and as you can see, here's a V, here's a V. This is a column of V's right here. Usually the first column of V's that you can see clearly in stockinette stitch is actually your second column, because the first column curls under. Sometimes a lot more badly than this is curling. I did steam this piece to uncurl it a little bit to make doing this video easier. So if I turn it on the edge, that edge stitch right there, you can see all those V's. Some of them are a little bit misshapen, but it's definitely a whole column of V's there. That is the edge stitch. So we're going to work between the edge stitch and the second stitch, which is the space right here. I can pull that apart a little bit. This is a cotton piece, so it's a little bit less forgiving than a wool piece. It's not going to pull apart nearly as easy. Okay, so we're going to work in this channel between those two edge stitches right there on both pieces. So the first thing you want to do is identify that channel between the first and second stitch, and we're going to work in that column. So now I'm going to, it doesn't matter if you start on the right or the left piece, whichever one is more comfortable for you to start with, but you're going to insert your needle and pick up the bar between those first two stitches. So right like that, and pull your yarn through. Then you're going to go to the other side and pick up that same bar between the first and second column of stitches with your needle, right like that. Now go back to the first piece and you insert your needle where your yarn is coming out and pick up the next bar. And then go back to the other piece and insert your needle where the yarn is coming out and pick up the next bar. Keep going back and forth like that. Insert your needle where the yarn is coming out, pick up the next bar. So it gets a little easier once you get a couple of stitches done, because you can start to really train your eye to see that column. So I'm inserting my needle where my yarn is coming out and picking up the next bar. And of course, for this video, I am using a contrast color to do the seam, just so you can see it more easily. To actually seam my sweater, I will take this out and use the same yarn as I used for my sweater. There are times when you might not want to use the same yarn, primarily if the yarn you've knit with is one that is weak, like a single ply yarn that kind of falls apart easily. You may want to choose another yarn in a color that's closely matches your knitting, that's stronger than the yarn you knit with to do the seam. Or if you've used, if you're doing a project with a bulky yarn, you may want to choose a yarn that's a little bit thinner to do the seam, just so your seam isn't so bulky. Okay, so once you've got an inch or two of this done, you can see I've been doing it very loosely. You don't have to do it this loosely, but I encourage you not to do it too tightly, because once you get an inch or two done, you can hold the tail, or my tail's a little bit short, so I'm actually going to pull the tail to give myself a little bit more tail to weave in when I'm done. But you either hold the tail or pull the tail and watch that seam close up. And I think this is the fun of doing mattress stitch, is watching that kind of zip up. And then you want to make sure you don't get it too tight, so you can gently kind of pull it a little bit. Now you can see, since I've pulled it, I have a little bit of that light pink showing on the front. We don't want that, so I'm going to just pull the top, tighten it up. Now I have no pink, none of the light pink showing on the top, and it is a perfect seam. Now my stitches look a little bit wonky there. Part of that I think is because I did the pie crust edge here, so that's kind of affecting it a little bit. Part of it'll even out when I block it, but it creates a very nice seam that is basically invisible from the front side. And it works up, once you get used to it and you get going in a rhythm, it goes pretty quickly. I've done a few more stitches here just to show you. You'll do an inch or two and tighten it up, do another inch or two and tighten it up. And I also wanted to show you that in some projects you can actually pick up 2 bars at a time. So you will insert your needle where your yarn comes out, and instead of picking up 1 bar, there we go, you'll pick up 2 bars on your needle, just like that. And then go to the other side, insert your needle where the yarn comes out, pick up 2 bars, and keep going in that way. Now, if you're not sure whether to pick up 1 or 2 bars, the safer bet is to pick up 1 bar at a time. But I personally have not noticed a huge difference in most projects whether you pick up 1 or 2 bars. You can always try. It goes pretty much twice as fast if you pick up 2 bars, because you're picking up 2 bars at a time as opposed to 1. And so you could always try the first couple inches with 2 bars and see how that looks, and if you like it, keep going, and if you don't, take it out and start doing 1 bar. So here I've done another 1.5 inches or so, and I'm going to zip this up again. So I'm just pulling the working yarn, and this is why you want to use a strong yarn for this. If you're using a single ply or a yarn that pulls apart easily, it's just going to shred on you when you pull it, because there's a little bit of tension behind that pull. So there we go. Now you can see that seam is really just seamless. Now on the wrong side, there is a bump there, but I have never had an issue with that bump on the wrong side.